If you got time to, if you have to explain, it ain't working. There are 3 responses to a piece of a design: yes, no, and wow is the one you aim for. He did the Mad Men, the last season of Mad Men. They asked him to design this, so they took the Mad Men logo, then he drew this, and they plastered, so when you go down on the subway, it was like they put it right into the tile. It's really cool. Just enough is more is my favorite. So everyone says less is more, less is more. Miss Free says it. When Miss Free says it, you should listen to her because it's right. When you learn about drawing back in the Roman times, they used, actually the Greek times is called chiaroscuro, which just means cross-hatching. They still do this now. They'll put an apple on a table and say, draw that apple in 6 lines or less and make it look like you could grab it. And it means less is more in Italian. And so you hear it all the time, less is more, because you need to hear it because people need to do less is more. I had an art teacher that used to tell me all the time, his way of saying less is more was, when everything is emphasized, nothing is emphasized. And so Glaser says it in a different way, and it actually had a different font, but it's all good. You can still read it. He says just enough is more. I think it's a really good quote. And then on his door, when you go into the building where he goes to work, he lives in Woodstock, and he'll drive into work. First he has breakfast with his wife every morning for a gazillion years. And he goes out, and there's no walls in there, and so people don't have to yell. You can sit here and say, hey, are you working on it, whatever. And you're sitting there going, hey, I'm working with Milton Glaser, right? He's right there. And on his door, when you go in, there's a big transom, and it says, art is work. He doesn't go to the movies. He's into politics, but he doesn't like the presidents. He doesn't like Trump, he doesn't like Bush, but what are you gonna do? And he doesn't go to the movies. He doesn't do anything. He just works. He says it actually turns him on, like physically turns him on, like that being. He said, yeah, to be able to sit there and create something that wasn't there. He says that's the all end. That's it. Next slide. It's more of his work. This is a Patrick man. That's totally Patrick, but that's back in the day. Like that's what I would draw. So here's just an example of him. He would just go into supermarkets and like I guess they didn't have that stuff back then, and he made it all. And this is a pillow, and they put the dimensions of the pillow so people would know that you're not really buying pasta. So this is a poster for a pillow at a department store or something. This is back in his pushpin days. I think there's warships in there that are like, it was all about war. It was very anti-government and stuff, but and bad breath. There he is there, and I think he's just thinking about what's going to go on up here. Here's the logo of their pushpin. This is an example again of the pushpin. They were the things that kind of, as I was saying earlier, just turn people on their head. Here's another one, like the Cooperstown things, where he just animates an animal, puts a violin in it. This is just, you can see hundreds of images. When you look at that, you go, hey, that's a Glaser, and that's his work too. And then he would do things for the symphony and opera and things like that. Next slide, please. And then if you could push click. So he did like a whole series of Shakespeare books for whomever this was for. He did the Fortune 500. They came in the 70s. They had to revamp their whole thing because they were losing money and maybe not losing money. There was losing interest. So they said, hey, we have the 1997 edition of the Fortune 500. And so he went home and said, well, what do we do? And so he put the 5 in front of 100, and they loved it. And they loved it so much that they used an incarnate of this design for 15, 20 years. Every time the annual Fortune 500, they would use some sort of design from this. And they sat around the office one time, like 20 years later, which would have been, 10 years ago or whatever. And they said because they didn't get paid, they only got paid for the first one, right? That if they did the math, that they all got like $3 for it. So I throw that in there because this stuff is real, and you do get paid, and there are going to be times that it's just out there, and you're only going to get paid once sometimes. This is another book cover. So about 10 people a year in the NEA and the NEH, the humanities and the arts, get awards. And it's very fascinating. I've watched it for years. You can find all the old stuff on YouTube, but every year around Christmas time, they all get together, and whoever's president at that time gets the honor of just, you're shaking like very famous people and singers and writers and artists and architects and whatever, and they gave him, he's a graphic designer. That's what they listen. They call the military's there, and they read out and they hand I watched the video last night, and the Marine hands the thing, and the president takes the thing and puts it on you, and they go graphic designer, and it's like and it's like super famous people, and so when I began the story by saying he's the dude, and so there's an image of him in 2009 with the president, and you know what's funny is in the same year one of the 10 people, it was like Clint Eastwood, and you know one of the 10 people was Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan didn't show up, and they're all, oh darn, we could have taken pictures because he got so famous off that Bob Dylan image. Next slide. Don't worry, it's all over now. So, and then I just did one now where I just did for all the I Heart New York. So, I could read a quote by him, but I don't know if everyone's still awake. If not, that's the end of my presentation. Oh, I want to show you something really quick. So he says it's not all about, you know, when things are going good, it's great. So a couple years ago, Rhode Island gave him a call, said, hey, we got to do some stuff for tourism for Rhode Island. So he came up with this, it bombed. It went viral. They gave him like 400,000, so like just south of $500,000, right? And people were just, you know how they do on the internet, right? Just said, you what the, and they don't know who they were talking to, but so he did this, and people hated it, and it really kind of, it really affected him. I mean, can you imagine just everything you do great, right? And then he just bombed on it, and he said it really, really affected him. So sometimes in my life I paint little hand painting pictures, and I make bookmarks out of them, and I give them to my niece or nephews or my friends or whatever. So I thought what I'd do is make some bookmarks of all of his work. I put a little backing on them with his name, of some of the images that you saw here today. You put a magnet on it, put it on your fridge, or you just put a little hole punch, put a little string in it. Anyway, I made some bookmarks. Would not hurt my feelings if nobody wants one, but if you want one, I have some of his images. You guys can have one and take a grab. But so anyway, that's my presentation.
Great.
Thank you.